Hi everyone, I'm Jack from Jack's English.
And I'm Luke from Learn English Like a Pro, and welcome to the 10th episode of our Learn English podcast, which is designed to help you improve your listening skills by listening to our natural English discussions. And today we're going to talk about job interviews.
Yes.
You right? You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so let's start off with our most memorable experiences. So Jack, what's your most memorable job interview experience?
Okay. There's a few that come to mind.
Okay.
The first one that comes to my mind is, as I've probably mentioned on the podcast, I was in golf.
Yeah.
So I was training to be a golf professional, and that was the career path. And I actually sent a lot of letters to golf courses, just saying, hey, do you have a job? And a few of them responded, and I went to this place for a job interview. And I went in there and he looked at me strangely, like, it's a bit off. So, and we sat down and we had the interview, and then we had a playing sort of demonstration.
Okay.
And then he hired me.
Yeah.
So fine, great. But then the first day he said, Jack, you're kind of lucky I hired you. I said, why? Our interview went well. He said, you had the dirtiest trousers I've ever seen of someone having an interview. He said, luckily you talked well and you played well, so there was no problem there. But I was really put off by your trousers.
Oh, no.
And I said, really? They were washed. And I went home and checked, and they were they're black trousers and completely sun-bleached.
Oh, no.
Completely sun-bleached. So they were just they're black, but with an off-brown colour on the thighs. They just looked awful. Like, I'd picked them off the road. And
golfers are pretty funny about the way you dress.
Yes.
Especially older ones, right?
Yes. Very picky about that. Picky about the shoes.
Yeah.
First thing they check is the shoes.
Really?
And one of my jobs at that golf course was washing and polishing all 10 of his shoes every week.
Oh, wow. That's a good job.
So yes, that's one of my memorable experiences, and I also mention another one just because it just always comes to my mind, and I always look back and I think, what happened there? Is I had this job interview at a car showroom.
Okay.
And we again flew the interview. I mean, it went so well. We had a great chat. Had a good rapport with each other, and then he said, okay, do a typing test, and I did a typing test. He said, great, that's fine. And at the end of the interview, he said, Jack, you did so well. I can't wait to hire you. And then I walked out. I was so happy. I went home. I told my parents. I didn't get the job.
What? That's just...
I think he sent me an email later and said, I'm sorry, but we've decided to go with someone else.
Oh, no.
I couldn't believe it. So, yeah, they're kind of, I suppose they're opposite examples, aren't they? And, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, right.
How about you?
That's quite mean of that guy, though, to tell you that he loved you and you pretty much got the job, but then...
It was a bit harsh.
It's a bit harsh, yeah. So I have one particular interview that sticks out in my mind. It was when I was 17, I think. I was pretty young, and I applied for a job at Nike. Yeah. In the store in my local shopping mall, and there was a group interview. There were I think 10, 12 people. Basically, we had to practice selling things, and we had to demonstrate our communication skills and our knowledge of Nike products. But I realized halfway through that actually wasn't the test. Our test was our awareness of people around us. So I don't know how I noticed this, but basically what happened was that we were in a circle, the people being interviewed, 10 or 12 of us, big circle, right? And 3 or 4 managers were constantly walking around, and they kept dropping things. Dropping a pencil, dropping a piece of paper. And what they wanted was just for us to notice and be like, hey, you dropped this. Or excuse me, your pen. I noticed it. I was like, well, they keep dropping things. And then I basically, as it happened like 3 times, I said, hey, excuse me, here's your pencil. Or here's your notepad. Oh, sorry, you dropped that. I said it over and over again. And I think I was the only one who realized that they were doing it. And I'm pretty sure it was on purpose. I can't be 100% sure, but I got the job. And it seemed like it seemed that was the actual test. It wasn't
seemed set
really
up.
about what you were trying to sell, but more of like your
Yeah.
awareness of people. And it was interesting.
very
So that's very memorable because I think that was a tactic that Nike used to check, who's actually paying attention to the customer or who's around you. So
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done getting the job.
yeah.
So what have we got lined up
Oh
next?
yeah, right. So now let's talk about our worst experiences.
Yep.
So you said you already shared a bad one. Do you have another one?
Unfortunately, yes. And the other bad one that I have, and it is the only other bad one,
Okay.
and that was here in Korea.
Yeah.
And this is quite an interesting one because it's kind of cultural differences.
Okay.
They contacted me and invited me to their company, which is a marketing company. And I don't know why, but because they invited me kind of casually, in my mind, I thought, okay, I can dress casually.
Oh no.
So I wore trainers, shorts, and a shirt. The shirt was the only thing that was slightly sort of formal, but I mean, it really was a casual, outfit.
Yeah.
So I went there, and their first impression was obviously bad. But then we just had this weird sort of cultural difference, which is where I sat down, they came in, and they sat down, and they sat there
Yeah.
and just looked at me and waited for me to say something
Oh no.
for a long time. And me being kind of proud, I said, okay, well, I'm not going to say anything either. And we just sat there and looked at each other for it probably wasn't that long, but it felt like a few minutes.
I can imagine that awkward silence.
It was very
Being
awkward.
Really painful. And
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on?
And I think I broke first.
Oh,
and in the end, I said, so, why have you brought me here? Because that was,
Yeah.
I didn't know. Why have they brought me here? And we just ended up having a very awkward interview.
Yeah.
And I ended up rejecting them happily.
Yes.
But that was a very awkward interview.
Yeah, that sounds painful.
How about you?
Yeah. Mine's also. I've only had one bad interview, luckily, but this one was particularly painful. So I just finished one of my teacher training courses in Korea. I was pretty young. I think I was like 22, and basically I passed this course. So the idea was that I can now get a job teaching in Korea. So that was the kind of what they suggested to me throughout the course. If you pass with a good grade, you can get a job. So at the end of the course, I passed, I got a good grade, and then I got asked to meet the bosses. I assumed to have an interview, a quick interview, and basically find me a suitable position. But I walked into the interview room, and there were three older men there, and one of them was just so horrible to me. Like he just started testing me on my English grammar knowledge. Like, for example, like when would you use a non-defined relative clause?
Oh, wow.
How do you what are the functions of the past continuous, like on the spot?
Yeah.
I was pretty young, and I can answer those questions now, I would hope, but back then I didn't have a suitable answer, and I was telling him like, basically, I thought this was more of a a job search or this was a done deal. I didn't think that this was a real interview I had to prepare for. And it was just a very horrible experience. I didn't work for them after that.
Really?
I found a different job.
Yeah.
But,
probably for the best.
Probably for the best, yeah.
Yeah.
And, it was bad.
Yeah, not so good.
Not so good, yeah. All right, so what about some cultural issues in terms of interviews? So in the UK, what are some cultural interview techniques that you're aware of?
Yeah. So, the thing that comes to my mind firstly is group tasks. I don't know in other countries, and certainly in Korea, it seems that it's not so common. But as far as I'm aware, pretty common thing in England, certainly, probably Britain, is the use of group tasks. So you'll be assigned, kind of what you experienced in Nike, right? Assigned a group, assigned a task, and then they don't care whether you complete the task, successfully. They're looking at how you work in a group
Yes,
and how
exactly.
you manage getting from A to B. It's so that seems to be one thing.
Yeah.
Have you got any other ideas?
I think that one cultural, issue in the UK is that it's actually more casual.
Yep.
Interviews are quite casual. You have to dress smartly. You have to wear a suit and at least a shirt and tie. But the way they talk to you, the way you communicate with the interviewer is quite friendly.
Yes,
Right.
I agree.
I don't think it's as formal as in other countries.
That's what I was always taught. For interviews, you can't prepare too much and you can't dress too smart. So always just try to dress smartly. That's an easy one, right? You can just get that right. But as you said, when you have the interview, it is normally fairly friendly. I never had an uncomfortable interview where they're grilling me.
Yeah, right. Because, well, in the UK, if they've invited you for an interview, it means they've liked your application and that you're already qualified. Now they want to see if you personally are a good fit for the company, like your personality or your characteristics, right?
I think so,
I think
right?
so, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, in the UK, we don't put our photograph on our resume or CV.
We don't.
No, I think it's illegal to do that.
I've heard the same.
Yeah, so in Korea, actually, one cultural difference is we always have our photograph on our resume, so the employers know what we look like and can make their own judgments based on that. But in the UK, I'm pretty sure it's illegal to do that.
Yes, I've heard the same.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case for probably quite a few European countries. But here in Korea, as you said, you always have that face, and you've made yourself look as good as possible. It's probably a 10-year-old photo, and that's a big part of it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to wrap things up?
Yes. Let's do it.
Well, thank you all for listening to this podcast. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below.
Yes. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week for another podcast.
Cheers.
Yep. Bye-bye.